You know, taking on your homeowners association can feel like you're fighting for the soul of your own home. But imagine this. What if you had a mountain of evidence, a super clear case of being wronged, and you still lost? On every single point. We're about to get into a wild lawsuit where being right had almost nothing to do with winning.
I mean, we've all felt that frustration, right? You get a nitpicky notice about your trash cans being out an hour too long, but meanwhile, your neighbor's yard is a complete mess. Well, for one couple, that kind of frustration boiled over into a full-blown legal war. So let me introduce you to John and Patricia Monahan. They were absolutely convinced their HOA wasn't just dropping the ball. They felt it was actively targeting them while letting other residents get away with all sorts of things. They decided enough is enough, we're taking this to court.
Their case kicked off with a classic complaint, selective enforcement. They were basically saying, hey, the HOA is hammering us with violation notices, but they're completely ignoring what our neighbors are doing.
And then there were the barking dogs. You know, that constant, maddening nuisance. They complained and complained, but they felt like the HOA just did absolutely nothing.
On top of that, they pointed to these huge RVs parked illegally all over the place. And the HOA's big solution? They'd issue these tiny little fines that were basically a cheap parking fee. It did nothing to actually stop the problem. And the final straw? The board was supposedly holding these secret meetings, making major decisions behind closed doors, which is a huge no-no. It really looked like an open and shut case, right?
So they march into court armed with a huge pile of evidence and what they thought was an airtight story of an HOA just completely failing its duties. And yet, the judge threw out every single one of their claims. How on earth is that possible? Well, that's the puzzle we're going to solve today.
Okay, so to really get how they lost so spectacularly, we first have to look at what exactly they were fighting for. Their entire lawsuit basically boiled down to 5 main grievances.
And when you look at this list, I mean, it seems pretty solid, right? You've got everything from what feels like personal harassment all the way up to failed governance and a total lack of transparency. On paper, it really looks like they had the HOA dead to rights.
But the decision that came back from the judge was not what they were expecting at all. It wasn't, a partial win or a small fine for the HOA. Nope. It was a complete and total shutdown of their case.
And there it is, right there in stark legalese. Dismissed in its entirety. Wow, not a single one of their 5 complaints survived. So what happened? Did the judge just not buy their story? Well, the real reason is way more complicated. And honestly, it has very little to do with who was right and who was wrong.
This right here is the crucial twist. The case didn't fall apart because of shaky evidence or because the HOA had some brilliant defense. It fell apart because it couldn't even get past the first few checkpoints of the legal system itself. It's kind of like showing up for a big race, all ready to go, only to be told you used the wrong entrance to the stadium and you can't even compete.
So, this is where it all unraveled. See, to win a lawsuit, it is not enough to just be right. You also have to be in the right court, be the right person to sue, and you have to be fighting over a problem that actually still exists. And believe it or not, the Monahan's case stumbled on all 3 of those things.
These are the 3 big gatekeepers of the court system: jurisdiction, standing, and mootness. Before a judge even glances at your evidence, your case has to get past these 3 bouncers at the courthouse door. Let's break down what they actually mean.
First up is jurisdiction. This is all about whether a specific court even has the power to hear your kind of case. The analogy here is perfect. This particular court could only hear cases about specific state laws or HOA documents. It just didn't have the key to open the door on a general claim like harassment. Next up, you've got standing, and this one's pretty simple actually. It just means you have to be the person who is actually harmed. You can't sue because your neighbor has a problem, even if you feel really bad for them. You personally have to have a real stake in the outcome.
And finally, there's mootness. Think of it this way. Courts are super busy, right? They only deal with live, active problems. If the issue you're suing over got fixed by the time you finally get in front of the judge, then your case is considered moot. There's literally nothing left for the court to solve. Okay, so now that we've got our 3 legal hurdles, jurisdiction, standing, and mootness, let's apply them. We're going to go back to the Monahan's 5 complaints and see exactly how each one got knocked down one by one. And this is where it all just falls apart for the homeowners. Let's walk through it. Okay, first, the harassment claim about the pool pump in the trailer, boom, knocked out for 2 reasons. The court had no jurisdiction to hear it, and since they'd already moved their stuff, the problem was moot. The barking dogs? Also moot. The county had already stepped in and handled it. The RV parking issue? They lacked standing because that was really a dispute between neighbors, not with the HOA in this particular court. And the missing committees? You guessed it, moot again, because by the time of the hearing, the HOA had already appointed them.
So this brings us to the final complaint, the one about the secret meeting. And this was the only one that actually cleared all three of those legal hurdles. The court had jurisdiction, the Monahans had standing, and the issue wasn't moot. So for the very first time, the judge could actually look at the facts of the case.
And what did the judge find? The HOA's actions were completely legal. It turns out state law allows a board to hold a closed-door executive session to talk about pending or contemplated litigation. And since the HOA had gotten letters from an attorney threatening to sue, their private meeting was totally by the book. So the one claim that actually made it to the finish line failed on its own merits.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, the Monahan story is this really powerful lesson that the legal system isn't just a stage where you tell your story and the most sympathetic person wins. No, it's a complex machine with very, very specific rules of entry. And sometimes, proving you were wronged isn't nearly as important as proving you belong in that courtroom in the first place.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about, right? Does this whole intricate system of rules actually ensure fairness by making sure courts only hear the right cases? Or does it create a super complex game where knowing all the technicalities matters more than the actual truth of a situation? It's definitely something to chew on the next time you hear about a case that seems straightforward but takes a totally unexpected turn.